Welcome to today's lesson. You will need your note composition book for notes and a pen or a pencil. Hit pause and gather those materials now. Alright, so today we're going to talk about compound interest. Compound interest is different than simple interest, is that it's compounded either daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, annually, etc., etc. So our formula that we're going to use in class is this, where A is the amount at the end of the time, P stands for the principal, which is just like simple interest, and the rate is the same as simple interest. It's got to be a decimal. N is going to be the number of times you're going to compound it yearly, and then T is the time in terms of years. So let's take a look at compounding them. This is the formula here that you're going to see on your formula chart. So you're going to have to know that the rate is always divided by the number of compounds, and it's always multiplied by the time. So if you're going to compound it annually, once a year, you have your N is 1. If it's semi-annually, which is twice a year, you have your N is 2. Quarterly is 4 times a year. Monthly is 12 times a year. Weekly is 52 times a year. And daily is 365 times a year. So let's look at one of these. Actually, you should hit pause and copy those down. Then we'll go into a problem. So I have $500 invested at 8%, compounded quarterly after a period of 2 years. So yeah, it's kind of confusing because this is quarterly, but for 2 years. So what that means is every 4 months, they compound interest. And then they add that amount back on. And then another 4 months, they do the interest times it again. And then they do that every year for 2 years. So it's how many total times would they be calculating the interest? 8. So here's my formula. My principal is 500. It's always 1 plus. Now my interest rate is 0.08 and it's compounded quarterly, so it's divided by 4, and then my exponent is 4 times 2. So that's going to give me 0.08 divided by 4 is 0.02. So 1 plus 0.02 is 1.02 to the 8th. Now, this is where it gets tricky because you've got to do this whole thing on your calculator at one time. You can't break it up into pieces because it won't work out right. Because 1.02 to the 8th power, because you've got to do exponents first, is a huge number decimal-wise. And then you multiply it times 500 and you're going to get another huge number decimal-wise. And so at that point, it's money, so we want to round to the hundredths position. And this would give us 585.83. So if I invest $500 for 2 years, and my interest rate is compounded quarterly, at the end of 2 years, I will have $585.83 in my account. Let's try another one. Now this one is going to be compounded yearly for 5 years. So it's a little bit of an easier formula because there is no N, because yearly is 1. So N, anything times 1 is 1. So, or anything times 1 is itself, excuse me. So I've got 1,000 times 1 plus 0.07, because divided by 1 is just 1, and 5 times 1 is just 5. And so when you multiply that all out, you're going to get $1,402.55. So the longer I have my money in my account, the more money I'm going to get. Now, the same thing, credit card companies do this monthly. So they would do it, the N would be 12. Let's do one of those. I have $310, 2% compounded monthly for 6 years. So let's pretend that this is a credit card and that I have a balance of $310 and I don't want to pay anything on it, and I want to see how much my credit card will be. Well, and it won't be 2%, it'll be like 22%. So let's look at this. My compounded monthly, how many months in a year? 12 for 6 years. So when I plug my numbers into my formula, it's going to be 310 times 1 plus 0.02. That's my interest rate, divided by 12, and a power of 12 times 6, which is going to give me $349.49. Now at 2%, that's not bad, but let's think, what if it was 22%? That would be a huge number. All right, there we go. That's compound interest.